Today, AI is hungry for data, all of it. Then musicians are fighting AI, but do they want limits or just cash? And as Marissa Mayer's new photo sharing app crashes and burns, we ask, what happened? I'm Bob Garfield, the mere peasant sidekick to Steve Rosenbaum, the prince of podcasting, and from various points on the eastern seaboard. This is Future Forward. Hey, Steve, what you got?
I gotta say, my first reaction was I don't give a shit about this AI data kerfuffle. And then I started to think about it a little bit because, I have a whole lot of video on YouTube. So I guess they're scraping that. And then I was thinking about Gmail, which I actually don't really use much, but occasionally. Are they scraping that? And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, this is really kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary for a bunch of reasons. One is, of course, that as we learned in a very good package of articles from the New York Times on Saturday, the uh, the needs of the various AI platforms are very simple. They literally need all the data out there online, all, like, full stop, everything you got. And that's because that's how these language learning systems work. They need more and more and more data so that they can more and more mimic actual speech and writing and so forth. So they are absolutely insatiable. And the story is about how various platforms, whether it's ChatGPT, Microsoft, Meta, or Google, have been at a minimum bending the law and their own terms of agreement to get everything without paying a whole lot of attention to whether it's legal. And the goal, they will run out. This is amazing. In about 2026, they will have scraped and consumed everything that the internet has to offer. Everything. And then it's like, well, there's this island called Nauru in the South Pacific, and it was a guano island. And the centuries, the eons of seagull droppings on the island were mined for the phosphates industry because that's what they made fertilizer out of. And until very recently, after this industry, since World War II has whatever that is, it's 75 years. They scraped it all off. Yes, we have no more guano, and that's what's going to happen to the AI industry in just 2 or 3 years. They will have no more guano to scrape off the island, and then what comes next is really concerning to me.
So here's a little known one. You may know this, but back in 2005, well-meaning, thoughtful people were trying to figure out how to make knowledge more accessible. And so the New York Public Library struck a deal with Google to scan all of its collection. Do you remember this drama?
Yes, I do.
And so Google has been set up a big warehouse somewhere or another and has been, scanning. They're not quite done, but they've been scanning all of the knowledge of the planet. Turns out that part of that arrangement back in 2005 was that there was some sharing. You could search it or Google Books or whatever, but they controlled it. So when the other people that are doing large language model data scraping went looking for, let's say, books, like all of them, Google said, yeah, no, that's ours.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, it's a fight to the finish here. At the moment, ChatGPT has more data than anybody else, and therefore they have the best language model, and they're going to get closer and closer to language and creativity that's undetectable from human effort. They're not there yet. But so I don't care which of these ones succeeds, and they all, this story tells us, corrupt in their own ways. They've all bent the rules and bent the law and paid very little attention to oh my God, intellectual
Copyright.
property. Yeah,
Yeah.
copyright, intellectual property, and because it's it's probably going to be winner take all, but as I say, in 2026, they run out. So then they're going to depend more and more for learning on what has been itself generated by AI. Now, what we know about AI is that it generates, in addition to mind-bogglingly lifelike text, it also makes mistakes. It makes mistakes in text. It makes mistakes in image. It makes mistakes in sound. And I think that if they are reduced to using more and more AI generated content to learn more AI, to get more and more AI quality, it's going to be inbreeding. And the mistakes are going to continue to generate and distort what would very soon will be deemed to be the world's font of knowledge. And that's scary as shit.
And not to be doom and gloom, but for a moment, if the reputable content owners, let's use the New York Times as an example, puts their foot down and says, you can't scrape our content without paying us.
Which it has in a lawsuit.
Which it has, and there's a court case ongoing. And meanwhile, the irreputable content owners like the Washington Examiner and all those characters say, nah, come on, come get it. Then all of a sudden you've got this database of fundamentally corrupt information. And so when you ask ChatGPT, was the election stolen from Donald Trump? And all it has is, it doesn't make any pejorative decision about how to weight this source or that source. It says, oh, well, there's lots of opinion. I'll just come up with some amalgam of what quote common wisdom is. Well, that's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, that's what they call garbage in, garbage out. And I'm afraid of the geometric effect of reproducing garbage through machine learning and coming out with a more refined but nonetheless still false or distorted picture. So, I think what we're talking about is if the trajectory goes as it has been, and they do run out and they do depend on AI to generate learning for AI, we're going to have the equivalent of birth defects in all the content that AI produces. The problem is we won't know which content that is.
Yeah. And by the way, let's remember that at least in its earliest days and from its birth through some period of time, Google was at its core a do no evil company. That wasn't a slogan. That was Larry and Sergey trying to make the web searchable. And then somewhere along the line, advertising showed up and everything went to hell in a handbasket. In the world of AI, there is no such ambiguity. They are for-profit companies looking to make. They've borrowed, they've raised billions of dollars, and all those people that put billions of dollars in are expecting tens of billions of dollars back. So unclear whether that's going to be paid data search or advertising, or in the world we now seem to have wandered into both, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but like Amazon, I used to find Amazon a really useful search engine for products. And now you have to go through pages and pages of sponsored posts to get to anything that doesn't have a check associated with it. So it's hard to remember because the word sponsored is so tiny that it doesn't mean good. Top of the page doesn't mean good. Same thing in Google search results. 4 or 5 pages in before you get to organic results. I thought the thing about the Times piece was that it was both of them. What was that they were concerned but rational. They weren't banging their fists on the table saying end is near. AI is going to consume all knowledge on the planet and make it upside down. But if you read it with any care, that was they were making a not too subtle set of claims about the dangers that we've wandered into.
Yeah, I mean, the two simple facts alone that they run out of internet to scrape in 2026, that's troubling. Actually, the troubling fact is that they are, sparing no illegality or ethical lapse in order to get there. But the third thing is, of course, using AI content to generate more AI learning. To me, that's the birth defect scenario, and it scares the shit out of me.
So what would change this? I mean, the people that have invested. So if you were to kind of like pick a winner now, like it seems like the three players. Well, it's more complicated than that. I mean, certainly Microsoft has the pole position as the essential owner of ChatGPT, and then they've acquired a number of other big AI players. That being said, I've tried to use the Microsoft, their own browser inside of Bing with their own whatever version of ChatGPT, and I find it kind of shockingly bad. And I don't know why exactly. Just it seems like it has all kinds of hedges and guardrails, and it equivocates a lot, and it doesn't. Whereas ChatGPT straight up, to me, seems like a better outcome.
Yeah. So is it going to be Apple? Is it going to be Google? Is it going to be Microsoft? I think the answer is it's going to be the People's Republic. What's the name of the army of the Chinese government or Russian intelligence services? They have absolutely zero compunction about stealing other people's intellectual property, and they have endless financial resources to do the computing. And I think that whichever of the commercial ventures succeeds, it makes almost no difference what rules they follow, what global compact, that they cleave to, that bad actors are going to come out on top.
So let's switch over to this music topic. So 200 high-profile artists have all come out fighting what they call catastrophic use of AI in music. And I wondered what they meant. And coincidentally, someone had sent me a link to an AI that composes music. And so in part because I was prepping for the show, and in part because I was thinking about AI and music, I typed in a sentence and a half. I mean, maybe a thought and half a thought into this AI. And I'll tell you what I typed in.
Well, hold on a second. Let me just say it was not a random thought. It's a thought that you have constantly and have had now for a couple of years, because it is the center of what you're doing for the Sustainable Media Center. And so, again, this was not a random one-off. It's the central question in your mind.
It is, but I gave it. I didn't write lyrics. I'm not a musician. I can't hold a tune. I don't sing, and I also didn't try and attempt to write lyrics. I essentially put in a thought. I said, "Why is social media hurting me?" Period. And then I said, "Why do my parents tell me to put down my phone while they're holding theirs?" Period. And then I said, "Go make music, little device," and it scampered off and came back in about 8 seconds, 9 seconds with his first song, and then another 8 or 9 seconds, his second and third, different. And they asked me what style of music I wanted it in, and I just said hip hop. That was it. I mean, no. And here, let me play what I think is the.
Say,
yeah.
I heard this song. I think it's fantastic. I don't think it sounds like hip hop. I think it actually sounds like Taylor Swift, but whatever.
Here we go. I'll play a clip.
Put down your phone. when they're all living a dream. Endless posts, but I just can't seem to stop pretending. Everyone's highlight reel, it's like they're living a dream. But deep inside I know it's not as real as it seems. It's not as real. I tell myself I'll put it down and live my life, but the FOMO hits and I grab my phone, can't fight. My parents say put it down, be present in the now, but they're on their phones too, I'm feeling so left out. Why does social media hurt me? Why do I stay, knowing it won't set me free? Why do my parents say put down your phone when they're holding this? It's like we're all alone, all alone. One more loss, it's like we're alone.
So, for a couple things, I liked it immediately. I liked the lyrics. I liked they went the AI went a whole bunch of places in terms of that subject, with a language I don't know, and some complexity about how young people feel that I thought was pretty insightful. Now maybe that's just what Gary Marcus says, an excellent parrot. Maybe it's just an excellent parrot, but I like parrots, and I like this song. It also is worth saying out loud that maybe we're now so accustomed to pop music having kind of a certain structure to it, that anything that impersonates that structure, sounds like, I could imagine my song being on the radio, if there is radio anymore. I struggled with, this is the thing, I struggled with posting it on the Sustainable Media Center website because I couldn't decide if I was ending up endorsing, kind of anti-musicianship in a way.
Well, that's one thing. And the second question is, are you essentially guilty of receiving stolen property? If all of this stuff was scraped from people without their consent, which is what these 200 artists are claiming as being catastrophic, then those are two issues you have to come to terms with.
But back to the Billie Eilish question. If you read between the lines, here's what troubled me about these 200 artists. I think the subtext of what they're saying, or maybe what they're actually saying without subtext, is fuck you, pay me. Like don't replace human created music with robot created music, because that would be bad for art and society and humanity. But if you're going to do it, if you're going to rip me off, just fucking pay me, seemed to be what they were saying, right?
I guess. But, this is not exactly akin to, let's say, the Industrial Revolution, where the cobblers might have wanted society to say, look, we're about to industrialize and make you all irrelevant, and manufacturers, everything else, right? Of, artisans, everything else, where they were about to be erased from the economy and their livelihoods disappear in the space of a few years. And could society, anticipating this problem, do something for me? Because we are about to be redundant. That, of course, didn't happen in the late 1700s and up until the mid 19th century, but it might have. If it were going on today, that would have happened. And so, but this is not just the musicians being cobblers saying our skill is being made redundant. This is them saying our creativity, which is kind of a synonym for their humanity, is being made redundant. And first of all, shouldn't we all be worried about, isn't that in and of itself catastrophic? And if it is the case, if our very humanity is being rendered obsolete, let us at least get a portion of the proceeds from the mechanized version of creativity. and I don't know if the answer is right. If that's, if you think that's a money grab, you might be right. But it,
So it's like the horse, the blacksmiths who make horseshoes saying, listen, we see these cars are coming along. We would just like 10 cents of every tire manufactured to go to the cobbler retirement fund so that.
right. But again, the difference is, and I think it's a critical difference. I might be wrong, but the critical difference is what is being made redundant here is not a skill per se. It is the ability to conjure creative work that is that is defined by its humanity. And so it's not just that their hammering, their blacksmithing is being made redundant by better technology. It's their very human essence. And I don't know. And yes, pay us a little bit of everything that AI turns out. Now, of course, who says that Billie Eilish gets it and Taylor Swift and people who are very successful versus everyone who tries to be creative in music or in the other arts? Maybe they deserve a chunk too, or
Well,
at least
and the dirty answer to this is it's not like you can say to the code, hey, tell me all the artists that you scanned to come up with this, Billie Eilish sounding voice, because the truth is it doesn't know.
That's true.
It knows it looked at the internet and it listened to it probably listened to as many songs that people put up on Spotify or whatever. What's the song sharing platform? Like, I mean, it has no discrimination. It doesn't say let's only listen to the popular female voices.
Okay, that's true. But there is a precedent for this. And it, in fact, was in the music industry. And that was the BMI ASCAP deals, which enabled radio stations to play, hit songs and other songs without having to pay for them. They would pay an overall licensing fee to these centralized organizations. Those organizations would take a little bit for operating costs and then redistribute it to artists as a kind of a flat fee for their work, because there was no way to keep track of which radio station or which elevator played which tune at what time or which artist it was. So everybody got a little bit of the action from the licensing fees. And I think that model might work here, where everything that is generated musically, that is generated by AI, since it by definition is all built of the infinitely small parts of the entire internet full of music, then the people who created those infinitely small parts maybe deserve to get a piece of the action. However,
I think that's a terrible idea. And I'll tell you why. So I know at least one song that you've written,
mm-hmm.
right? The one that you pitched on the airplane, the famous Garfield.
Yeah, Tag You're It.
So,
by the way,
are you right? Are you an ASCAP member?
No.
Right. So if you applied to ASCAP and said I wrote half of one song, they would say, yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, I don't know how ASCAP applications work, but presumably you have to have some body of work to get, to get in the Producer's Guild, you have to be a producer.
Yeah.
So the bias would be that all the people who are commercially successful musicians get a piece of the AI-driven music revenue, and everyone else can just fucking pound salt. That would be the outcome of that model. Now, by the way, the professionalization of music is a relatively recent occurrence in the history of humanity. I mean, for the longest time, you sat around the campfire and strummed your guitar and sang, and no one got paid. So it might be that we'll look back and just go, yeah, professional musicianship was a was a blip in the radar.
Well, it's a long blip. I mean, it began in the Renaissance. So
They got paid, but they got licensing fees? Not
no,
really.
not licensing fees, but they were professional musicians. They got paid by whatever benefactors who
The royalty, the nobility.
yeah, exactly. Or the Medici who well, it's a complicated one, but it is one of the many complex issues that artificial intelligence has brought to our attention, and probably the least important to any of our future.
We have time for one last chapter. Let's talk about this Marissa Mayer thing. So Marissa Mayer has a startup studio that's been building apps, and her latest one is called Shine, and it's a photo sharing app, and it went horribly wrong, and it's unclear to me exactly what happened. I know what I'm reading on Business Insider, which is that her co-founder quit just as the app debuted, which doesn't seem like an ideal time to leave after. And I guess he's been with her for a fairly long time. And this studio,
they co-developed, I think, all of the apps that are in this, relatively small portfolio of. It's an interesting portfolio because they're very narrow apps that are very utilitarian, and when I read about them today, seemed actually quite old-fashioned.
Useful for Marissa was my immediate thought. Stuff that Marissa would like to have seemed to be the apps.
Yeah, stuff that a middle-aged woman with a family or whatever, who's just figuring out what the internets are, but they're useful for organizing your shit. I mean, that's what I think all these apps have in common, whether it's your calendar or whether it's your photos. You go to
Contacts
an event.
Was one.
Yeah, I mean, this one, Shine, the idea is you go to an event and everybody's got their phones, everybody's taking pictures. They share them on this platform, and then you can go to the event and see what everybody's come up with. I think that's what it is, which, it ain't AI. I'll tell you that. It's not exactly a cutting edge application, but it sounds useful if you're into recording, every part of your life that you are participating in.
I think Flickr was that for a period of time. So I had a bunch of reactions to this. One is, it's like the person who's a foodie and goes to a lot of restaurants and loves going out to dinner and says, you know what? Fuck it. I could run a restaurant. And they hire a chef and they get a nice space and they hire some designers and they throw some of their personal wealth at it. And it turns out maybe eating in a restaurant and owning a restaurant aren't the same thing. I'm not sure what Marissa's actual skill set is in terms of being a startup entrepreneur. And presumably she's got fuck you money one way or another from a bunch of her gigs. So it seems more like a hobby than a.
Yeah, she had money from Google, and then she must have made a shit ton of money when Yahoo was purchased in one of the worst deals ever in business history, even worse than the AOL Time Warner deal. When I think Verizon bought what was left of Yahoo for an obscene amount of money, and that was the Marisa Mayer era. She overlapped with that, and I'm sure it was quite a payday for her.
She said in a quote that I read the other day that she wishes that she had not, when she was at Yahoo, that they had not bought Tumblr, and instead wishes they bought Netflix. You think?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, when in the original .com bubble, I was suggesting, screaming it. I was telling anybody who would listen that what Yahoo should buy is General Motors. They could have bought it for a stock swap, and they could have owned something. They could have owned a company with buildings and and factories and employees and sales that produced a product instead of free email service.
We're out of time, but I just have to end by saying, for those of you who listened last week and are tracking my predictions of successful and failed stocks. With great delight, I can report that that Trump's boondoggle fake pyramid scheme garbage is, in fact, the market woke up and went, oh, wait, this is pure garbage. And so that's falling off a cliff.
Yeah, it's not more of a Ponzi scheme, or actually more specifically a pump and dump.
Yeah, but with the people who could have waited it out and then dumped a little bit softer, like everyone who theoretically is his friend went, you know what? Actually, I'm going to just take my money and go. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Reddit is having an equally downward slide, which
I know that breaks your heart, and my condolences.
I'm heartbroken.
Steve.
Hugs,
my friend.
Hugs, the shoes.
No, hugs. I'm
hugs.
Hugs. Yeah.
Hugs. All right, we are out of time. I'm going to go back and play with my AI, and excited to hear Bob's song and what comes of it. And don't tweak it up too much. We want to see what it spits out without much coaxing.
Okay.
All right. See you next week.
Yep. Later.
Put down your phone when the whole living a dream. Endless posts, but I just can't seem to stop pretending. Everyone's highlight reel, it's like they're living a dream. But deep inside, I know it's not as real as it seems. It's not as real. I tell myself I'll put it down and live my life. But the FOMO hits and I grab my phone, can't fight. My parents say, put it down, be present in the now. But they're on their phones too, I'm feeling so left out. Why does social media hurt me? Why do I stay?